Welcome back to another episode of Fantasy Fiction Friday. We're getting into Christina's tale. This is a little longer one, but it's probably got I don't know, 3 little chilies to it. So we will be skipping those parts if you want them. They are available on KU as well as a physical copy on Amazon. The title of the book is The Ladies of the Lily, Dystopian Tales of the Fae. These corsets are too tight. Despite having my girl lace me loosely, I still found it hard to breathe under all these layers. I gasped, attempting to hold some oxygen in my lungs. I rolled my head, fighting the urge to stretch. I mean, what would they say about me if I did so in public? And my friend Shauna laughed at my side, her hair half tied up and length long and straight flowing down her back, as was the style of the time. She poked my side and talked loudly, hiding her mouth to my ear with her hand as if in secret, as if everyone near could not hear. It was fine. Only the ladies of the lilies, my friends, stood near, and we had wanted for all of them to overhear. Shonda said, "You're so lucky. Bernard is so cute." And I looked across the courtyard through the archways surrounding the tennis courts atop the tree. I could see it, I guess. I mean, he wasn't any taller than me, but his body was something else. He had devoted his time to growing his muscles, and that pressed on his clothing, threatening to burst free. Even under the ruffles of his shirts, we could see the outline of his chest, and I wasn't sure, but I think he may have stuffed his pants. No other man had a bulge so large. And he punched his friend's arm, who in return straightened the ruffles flowing down the front of Bernard's shirt, all the way to his belt. No one looked our way. Boys will be boys. Shonda could have him as far as I was concerned. Well, he was very handsome. We'd grown up together, and while I loved him with all my heart, I don't think I could ever think of him in that way. He was more of a brother to me. We had been arranged to be married at the time of my birth, and I had grown up with him under the Queen Mother's critical eye. Marjorie had passed before we could be wed. I hate to say it, but I had not missed her much. I loved her for sure, but she was strict and cruel, swift with punishments, of which there were many. It's hard to miss that. A quick slap on the wrist with a wooden ruler, or a slap across the face. Her heavy rings always left a mark, and the king would then remark or ask on how I had been such a bad girl that day, and then scold me, saying, "Women are to obey." I was expected to be the perfect example of a lady and befitting a queen. "Don't disappoint me," Christopher would always say. We had all been in attendance. As members of the court, we spent most mornings after the rains viewing the tennis match of the day. It had become a social event. Watching top athletes, beautiful and skilled men, continue to lose to the king, who had been no competition to them. But then nobody beats the king, if you know what I mean. The ladies and I would spend our afternoon finalizing my wedding plans, and once married, I would be a princess. And though the king was no young man, I doubted he was going to die anytime soon. At least, I hoped he would not. When I would tease and call him old, he was quick to remind me of his good health, fit, and form, and how he always won at tennis. He had a point. He was no decrepit old man, far from his deathbed. But come on now, young. Not even close. Couldn't even imagine him ever being young. Once I become queen, I would no longer be a lady of the lily. That day I was happy to wait for. I had no desire to be queen. I had been raised for the duty, and it just all seemed so boring. I didn't want my days to be filled with responsibility. As a result, the wedding plans were little more than just another thing I had to do to please the court. Another of my long list of responsibilities. So I let the leather ladies of the guild take the lead. I didn't care if there were fireflies or bubbles, wine or ale, or who sat where. I silently protested, but it was fate. And at the ceremonies, they were quickly approaching. Our conversation quickly turned from the wedding to the wedding night. All of the ladies of the Lily thought my betrothed to be fine and envied me. I laughed and giggled with them, but when they became too descriptive, I would feel my entire body just shudder with disgust. Oh, the late Queen Mother would be so proud of me. For once. I was sure our candid and enthusiastic expression of that would make her turn in her grave. So my response to it, she would like that. I had not shuddered at the thought of it. I was enthralled with that. But with Bernard? That weighed heavily on my mind. Many of the ladies of the Lily were called upon solely for the amusement of men at court. And they would dance or sing, always seductively. They told tales that were hot, steamy, and sexy. I wanted more. With every word, I just had not wanted to experience it with my betrothed. Not with him. Okay, guys, I'm skipping over parts because my account's been flagged because I guess I used too many provocative words or some shit. So I'm skipping over certain parts and certain words to kind of avoid that. I'm sorry. TOS. I mean, all of my pages are marked 18 and over, but whatever. Perhaps I should have been more excited. Nervous even. Well, I had not dreaded that day. I had not looked forward to it either. It was my duty, one that was thrust upon me and I had been trained for my entire life. I didn't want to let anyone down. But I really had no desire to wed either. It was one of many days that I was well prepared for, the day of my wedding. My servant girl took care to not pull my hair as she braided it, while another powdered my face with the softest pink shade and colored my lips with the deepest red pigments. I looked in the mirror, not taking notice of my appearance, rather lost deep in thought. I wondered if my parents would be in attendance. My birth parents. I had learned long ago not to question issues deemed of little consequence, or so the Queen Mother and King Christopher had told me. The question of my parents was of great consequence, just not to anyone else. To me, who they were had been, and the tale of whom I had come from, and how I came to be in the king's court, weighed heavily on me. I didn't know who I was without these answers, and I never would. A part of me would be forever incomplete. Not a day passed me by without the questions of them heavily on my mind. They were quiet, never-ending thoughts that left a void that would never be filled. And the day of my wedding, more so than others. Bubbles filled the room as I walked down the aisle arm in arm with the king. Candled sconces lined the walls as the soprano song filled the silence. I had heard her sing for the first time on a walk around the gardens with the ladies of the Lily. Her voice had brought tears to my eyes. She sang as she worked the fields of cotton flowers. She had been unaware that we could hear her. By her performance, it was the only one request that I had had. The only thing I had fought for in this ceremony. The color story, the food, the seating arrangements, I didn't care. Bubbles over fireflies they were whatever. But her voice I had to have. And I was denied her at first. A savage to perform at the royal wedding was a shocking request, to say the least. To service, yes, but a performance was another thing entirely. But when it came to the king, I always got what I wanted. He denied me nothing. And to bother him with trivial plans for an event reserved for the ladies of the Lily, he had found that annoying. So I looked at him sweetly, softly, pleading for him to say yes. And that was all I needed, and he approved. I had a gown in our chosen color story of gold and red sent to her. She looked nearly as beautiful as she sounded. Her parents would not be permitted to watch her perform for the entirety of the court, just as I assumed my parents would not be there to see me wed. We had that little in common. As I said my vows absent-mindedly and well-rehearsed, my eyes scanned the crowd for any faces that resembled mine. It was in vain. He kissed me, and I kissed him back with a quick peck on the lips, and the crowd cheered. And she once again broke into song, and feathers and crushed rose petals fell from the ceiling tops like glittered snow that stuck in her hair and filled the air with a pungent floral aroma. It was magical.
How the fuck did you get up here?
And I was wed to the prince. The party continued until the candles burnt out. Wine and mead flowed freely and abundantly. The soprano's song sang the entire time. Then it was my time. Our time to do what we had been called on to do. Produce a baby. But you don't get that story unless you buy it. Sorry. To us. And I'm fine with that. 18 and over, please. The king had tasked us with a new event. I announced to the ladies of the Lily, and excitement rose in my chest and tingles blanketed my body. We are to arrange the championship games to occur every year. I was genuinely excited to be organizing this event. The king had asked me at dinner the night before, and I stayed awake all night planning and envisioning the games and the ceremonies that would surround them. Nothing like it had ever been done before. The Fae had many sporting and hunting events, and the king had wanted a single spectacle to take place over a 2-week period each year, and a winner for each game and an overall champion to be crowned, and I was to lead the event planning and the ceremonies. I jumped at the opportunity, literally jumped, and squealed, telling the ladies of the Lily of our new conquest. Planning the event was all-consuming work. We were filled with ideas, each more grand than the previous. The king had even attended one of our meetings. He had been all consumed with thoughts on how the games were to be played as well, and he told us that the games were to be open to all the male Fae, so long as the entrance fee could be paid. Now, the king had refused our quest to allow women to perform in the games, saying it was for the biggest, strongest, and most skilled of men. Who would want to see weak women stumble around or even put themselves in harm's way? Whatever. Wondered if he realized he was speaking to a group of women who were highly offended at the ideologies he was spewing. Now, we would never talk back to the king. We sat listening to him speak and we hid our looks of disgust and disagreement behind our ceramic cups of tea, hand-painted with little flowers in pinks and blues. In addition, many of the lower branched females, they had had their wings clipped young, so they couldn't physically compete, at least not in the flying games anyway. But none of it sat right with us. In fact, we all hated it and complained about it at every meeting in Lily's Hall. We complained to each other, and we tried to find ways for women to be included, and to no avail. In a joking act of revenge, one of the girls suggested we make the biggest and the strongest complete with no clothes on. So I did what any good leader of women would do. I suggested it to the king. "No, that's ridiculous," he exclaimed over his dinner plate filled with cricket legs fried to a crisp and raspberry preserves. Couldn't eat anything. Passion mixed with anxiety filled my stomach with knots. that threatened to force any food out. Not becoming of a lady to puke at the dinner table. Let me explain. Begging with my doe eyes. The look he had never refused. I had always gotten what I wanted from him. I told myself in an attempt to find confidence to talk of men at the dinner table. The Queen Mother turning in her grave again, appalled by my actions, words, and requests. We have to ensure there's no cheating. The contestants can't have any advantage over one another. And this way, there's no place to hide anything. You could see everything. Besides, you want the biggest and the strongest. Why not go balls to the wall? I rambled. The king hid a smile and apparent giggle behind his food. I had really said balls at the dinner table in front of the king. A lady should not speak of such things, he responded. If a man had told the joke, the room would thunder with laughter. A fact that was not lost on me. I apologize. I hung my head, looking up at him with wide eyes behind lashes, hiding my own smile. King Christopher reached across the table and ran his hand lazily over my cheek, a gesture he had not offered since I was a child. I could feel his love for me, and I took every advantage of it. He approved the request, and it would come to be that every contestant would perform in the nude, to my delight. Of course, I couldn't get him to let women, nude or not. Bernard's and my arrangement with Sean continued. That's the part we skipped, guys. So, my phone is both overheating and about to die. I am going to make this a two-parter because, actually, I might even make it 3 because we're only about a third of the way through the story. So make sure to hit that follow button and join me next Friday for more Fantasy Fiction Friday, where we will continue to read Christina's tale and learn of their first, we'll learn of their first games. We still have to finish all the planning and everything. It gets good, you guys. I love this story. If you love a love story, a why choose love story, a forced proximity love story, and an HEA, you want to come back for the rest of Christina's tale. Well, thank you for joining me today. Remember, you are valid, you are worthy, and you are loved. Okay, bye!